Okay, then, welcome everybody. Thanks for being with us today. One more day in this fabulous adventure of listening wisdom from all sources and all voices. We are so happy that this is happening. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Vee Cline. She's going to talk about life is a playground. Why aren't you playing? Warning: Bee's presence may cause spontaneous laughter, sudden confidence boost, and irreversible shifts towards midlife joy. As a seasoned life coach, author, and audiobook narrator, Bee's got the credentials, but it's her journey that's the real credential. She spent decades trying to tame life's twists and turns, yawn exhausting. Once trapped on the perfectionism hamster wheel, Bee broke free and discovered the beauty of unpredictability. Now, with heart full of inner wisdom and spirit of play, Bee guides others in ditching perfectionism, don't need it, shame, I am freaking amazing, overthinking, no thank you thoughts, and teaches them to embrace spontaneity. Yay, surprises, stillness, welcome inner wisdom, trust, you've got this. Ready to spark some life joy? Let be your catalyst. Let be your catalyst. Thank you, B. I love your bio. Thanks for being here with us. We are all ears.
Thank you, Azul. That was fun hearing that said back to me. That was quite different from writing it. So, my topic today is life is a playground. So, why aren't you playing? Playground? Playground. So, why aren't you playing? Maybe it is a playground. That's interesting. So, when I thought about how to define what a playground was, what life's playground was, I decided that it's easier to tell you what it doesn't look like first. Um, and what I want you to take away from today is that there is a way to play at life, that it feels like a playground for you, that it's filled with love and joy and expansion and connectedness and an acceptance of your humanity. But first, let's talk about what it doesn't look like. And it doesn't look like what my childhood and my young adulthood looked like. Um, my parents were alcoholics, and one got meaner and more narcissistic with alcohol, and the other just withdrew. Like, think of that image of Homer Simpson kind of moving back into the bushes. That would be my dad. And my mom was the other one. Now, navigating my childhood was a series of how do I protect myself moments? How do I ensure I am safe? And I didn't know that then, but looking back, it's pretty darn obvious. I was always in fight flight. I was in survival mode. And I lived that way for decades. Um, I'm going to stay with this topic for a little bit because I don't want to dismiss other people's journeys who have been just as roller coastery as mine was. So if you'll bear with me while I talk about this past, I want to just in that acknowledge other people who have had similar circumstances and similar responses within themselves with those circumstances. So I was driven by a lot of avoiding shame, um, deep into anxiety, and using perfectionism to be safe. I was also wrestling with thoughts that weren't mine. They were instilled in me by my parents, teachers, colleagues, other students. Lots of people had opinions and gave them to me. And for some reason, I agreed with them and made them part of my belief system, my this belief, habitual thinking that I couldn't escape. Um, has everybody seen Dead Poets Society? There's a moment where what's his name, Charlie, um, shows up in the cave with a saxophone and does this beatnik riff saying, "My name is Nuwanda." Um, then he goes with the saxophone. He's like, "Gotta do more, gotta be more." That was my life up until I would say less than a decade ago. Gotta do more, gotta be more, judging and um, deeply pulling on that for how I lived my existence. And everything that, all the circumstances that happened in my life showed the negative thoughts I had about myself. So if the gotta do more, gotta be more failed, then I was a awful, awful human being. And that showed up like difficulties socially in high school. Um, I was raped, my divorce, any money problems, current health problems, the escalation in thoughts and the spinning in thoughts. Um, the more that those circumstances happened, the more I judged them as difficult, the more I judged how bad I was, how unsafe I was, and how everything was kind of crappy. Um, so where did I go for help? I mean, that's sustainable for so long, and you start to realize something isn't working here. And in my late teens and early 20s, I dealt with it with drugs and alcohol. Then just alcohol later. I can remember having like a 6 pack a night. Um, and when I no longer could sustain the side effects of alcohol, I went to food. I ate whenever I could. I sought out people who wanted to eat whenever they could. Shopped, surely clothing or that new article of furniture will make a big difference in my life. I would rearrange furniture. No lie, I rearrange my house on a regular basis, and it's still a running joke in my family. Like, something's wrong. Mom has rearranged the living room. And being safe through making people laugh. I knew that I knew I was connecting and okay if I could make you laugh. So I kind of went overboard with that for a while. Like I became the class clown in my 40s. I didn't do it in high school. I did it in my 40s. So when all of that was still unsustainable, and I kept suspecting this isn't how I am supposed to be living, I delighted my brain, by doing all kinds of workshops and forums on how to manage my thinking. Not kidding. I spent many years thinking about my thinking. Like, if this thought doesn't work, I will bring in this thought instead. Like, I will learn to think this thought, and that will make all the difference. And I heard Alan Watts say, actually, my kids sent me this video by Enzo, which is Alan Watts set to music. It's called Overthinker. And he's talking about a person who only thinks, who is an overthinker, only has their thoughts. I thought, oh. So I had spent decades building up thoughts that were destructive to me and that really, we call it personal thinking, this personal thinking. So I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to act, how to be, which is kind of a bizarre state. I mean, working on thinking for my thinking, it's like someone comes up and goes, "Oh, hon, your tires need some air." And I would go, "Okay, let's go over here and think about what kind of air they need." And I guess like those tires, all I really needed was a, a, a breath of fresh air. So it wasn't until a few years ago that someone offered, you're human, right? Yeah. Well, that struggle for perfection is a struggle against you as a human. All of that thinking, the struggle against shame, against anxiety, is just fighting with illusion. Now, it kind of ticked me off because my thinking felt really real to me. So, I was fighting against thoughts and the circumstance, and the circumstances couldn't be changed. Thoughts that often weren't mine, they were given to me, as I said before. So I'm not my thoughts, but then I 100% believed I was. This identity that I had carefully curated in my thinking, that's me. This is who I am. Anything else, I can't identify with. And so I still didn't get it. And I stayed in my head and I was zooming along the superhighway thinking, how fast I could go. I was just going crazy. Like, if you liken this thinking, some people say hamster wheel. My visual is being on this wide ass expressway, like there's 12 lanes and it's pretty full and we're all going really fast. And I'm going so fast I can't see the exits. I can't even get off, much less find the playground. Just constant stuff coming through. So I was still overweight, underfunded, self-medicating, not with food and alcohol so much as TV. Um, and all of that was bad. It was really bad. So before I go any further, there is nothing wrong with overthinking. There's nothing wrong with anxiety or shame or perfectionism. It's a part of you as a human. You can't do it wrong. You can't do it right. It's part of being human. It's not the most joyous of experiences for sure. And it's actually not even necessary, but it is your human experience and it is learning from it. But it's not the most natural state for a human. It's a learned state for many of us. And those emotions are warning signs that something needs attention. And we can let the emotions process and then go see what needs the attention. So here's my big aha. Finally, Valerie, where's the aha? Here it is. I met Christy Halverson and she became my coach. By then, I had coach training, and you're going to laugh. The training I had was about fixing your thinking. I mean, I lots and lots of coaching training, and it just cracks me up in retrospect because it was tailored to who I didn't want to be, but figured that's the playground I needed to be in, and that's not the playground. No, that's the one that needs a cleanup. So I'm like, my God, I'm going to fix my thinking because it's it's creating emotions that make me do things and I'm getting these results. So all I have to do is fix my thinking and I will get what I want. And that's just hilarious because it ignores emotions and it ignores inner wisdom. So Christy is living her life as an example of how inner wisdom is the force behind how she lives. She listens to that wisdom. And one day we were talking about life being a playground. And I pulled out one of my habitual thoughts and she said, wait, 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 wait. We were just talking about life being a playground and you put the brakes on so fast on something you wanted to do because you didn't know if you could do it. So that unknown stopped you. Okay. And she pointed out it was a habitual thought that I had to succeed through knowledge. And we talked about that specific thing, and it was like money problems. Like, I'm going to have to dissolve my business and declare bankruptcy. And she says, well, so what's the worst that could happen? And I go, I believe I'm going to be a homeless woman pushing a cart under an overpass. I can see it, I can visualize it. And you might laugh at that or you might identify with that. But my drama queen was out in force that day in convincing me that that was the truth of how my life was going to go. I was back on the expressway again. That was the only truth. And she said, but will you be okay? I was like, no, I'll be homeless and under an overpass clutching my grocery cart. And she said, wait, wait, wait. Will the truth of who you are be okay? And I wasn't 100% sure how to answer that. So she said, have you ever seen a child go to a playground? Let's go back to that original discussion. Go to a playground, and as they're getting out of the car, they throw themselves to the ground in front of mom, kicking and screaming, and go, I don't want to go. I don't know how to play. Just having a tantrum because they don't understand. And the truth is, no, they don't. It's innate. They go play. They go play how they want to in the moment, in the unself-conscious presence. They laugh, they yell, they might bicker with some kid who broke the rules, and then it's over, and they're laughing again. The bickering is long in the past, practically non-existent, really, as they keep being in the moment. Those kids, God, what instructors, children, they will be okay. They trust they will be okay. They trust the universe has their back. They trust that even if they are angry or hurt, that's not where life is going to stop. It, um, like in Ted Lasso, the story doesn't begin or end in the dark forest of a fairy tale. You always go through. And I began to understand here and here. I felt the understanding, and it felt like love and gratitude. And Christy, who worked with Michael Neal for many years, the name we've invoked many times this week, has a group she offers called Coddywampling. What a great word, Coddywampling. But here's her definition of the word: to travel purposefully towards unknown destinations, to be open to limitless possibilities, to unpredict your journey. That last one kind of really resonates for me. Unpredict my journey. Like whatever happens is going to happen. I get to be there with my unself-conscious presence. It just is the joy of the moment. And whatever that moment brings next, that to me is the playground. That's like being a kid on the playground. You know what I'd like to do? I'm going to share my screen briefly. There's a cartoon I'd like for y'all to see. Here it is. Can everybody see that? Okay. This is by Lunig, and it's one of my favorites. It's hanging in my bathroom even. And it really exemplifies to me the difference between being on that overthinking superhighway with no possible option of exiting and already being on the playground where you have people just zipping by. You'll get left behind, and you're there like, okay, how wonderful. And then someone else like judging, you'll miss out. Oh, how lovely. You won't achieve your personal best. Oh, how enjoyable. You won't be influential. How true. You won't be attractive. You won't be clever. Divine. You won't know what's happening. How peaceful. So resting in that inner wisdom is just amazing. Okay. I think that's the end of my talk. Let me check. Okay. Good.
You have more time if you would like to keep going because it was in the flow, or we can open up the space for questions and stories. And how do you feel? What would you like to do?
I want to say that even if you're on the playground, sometimes the superhighway shows up. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like when Azul and Bonnie said, we're gonna open this up for y'all to give a webinar. Like, I haven't given a webinar, oh my God. And I freaked out and said, so of course I have to do it. And for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I kind of frantically dealt with it in my head. And I mean, I got COVID. I tested positive for COVID on Monday. I mean, my body just went, but my inner wisdom, I had a moment where it was like, stop preparing, stop fretting. It's going to be what it's going to be. And there's somebody out there who needs to hear what you have to say, who's been through a lot of what you've been through, who needs to know that there's a beautiful meadow on the other side of the dark forest. And then there's another dark forest, and there's another beautiful meadow. This is just how life presents circumstances, and we get to be in those moments. That, yeah. So I'm now open for questions, comments, and all answers.
That was beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
So, who would like to share what you're hearing today, or any story, any question? Gilles.
Yes, hi. I just want to mainly comment on I'm so impressed with the level of reflection and the level of what I would perceive to be vulnerability in revealing yourself at that level. I'm not sure how it felt for you, but it landed for me as taking a huge risk. And that, in my mind, that tells me that you're in the playground, you know?
Mm,
You're in the playground and you're saying, "Hey, come play with me," you know? Because otherwise, all those thought patterns, those old belief systems would have been a fence that wouldn't let you in that playground, right? But you're able to look at that fence, understand how they came about. Okay, well, here, let me just take them apart. Now I'm in. You're maybe not in the middle, right? You may not even be on a piece of equipment yet. I don't know, but you're there and you're beckoning others in. It's how it landed for me, and I just am really impressed. And thank you for sharing you. I really appreciate that.
mm. That's really beautiful, Jill. I love the analogy of the fence around the playground and that you have to cut through the vulnerability and the judgments
Mm.
in order to be who you are in the moment. And yeah, I don't know if I'm like on the jungle gym ready to fall off or I'm on that whirly thing and, just having a blast and then I'm going to be staggering around for a while. But it was joyous to be able to say these things about my past and not have them feel so real.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Y'all, I know Jill, so this.
Well, and I think even if it's that's just such a wonderful place to be.
Mm, thank
Such a
you.
wonderful place to be. Oh,
Thank
oh,
you both. Linda.
Um,
I love
it's nice to hear that, V, because that was my experience of you. You didn't seem vulnerable to me in a sense of at risk of being somehow harmed by us. You seemed um, I almost want to say invincible. That sounds sort of grandiose, but it is the word that comes. And maybe it's true that there's like a when you're in the flow, um, kind of like your cartoon, whatever happens, it's divine, right? So yeah, I just was really touched by all of what you shared and kind of am in awe a bit like, wow. We and I mean my experience during it was like um all week I've been amazed at the wisdom that's like right in our class that I didn't know was in the class. I don't even know how I didn't know that, but like and also um the different the different ways we teach and the and how cool is that, there's like complete array of options and I'm grateful to be here this morning. It was lovely.
No, thank you. I
Mhm.
I I love how you were pointing out that this is how I heard it. It's when you're on the playground, you will play differently from other people. How we teach and how we interact. We're all gonna do our inner wisdom and our presence differently. And I do love that. I agree with you. And I hadn't noticed it as much either until everybody started sharing this week and how they shared. Just extraordinary to me when we get in the flow and that inner wisdom. I imagine you felt that moment when I quit being in my head and I started being in my heart, because they told me it was going to happen, and I was like, psh, and it did. And so watching everybody just blossom is a joy.
Thank you, Linda. Who else would like to share, ask, or say yes, but what about this or what about that? Jimmy.
That was great. It was really great. And it was really a journey too, going through all, I just wanted to thank you for the metaphor of the playground, because I've heard people say life is a game, you don't take it so seriously and everything. But in a game, there's a winner and a loser. But in the playground, there's playing. There's, skin in your knee and, bumping your elbow and all of that. But boy, that's a useful metaphor. I kind of look at it as modes of operating. I'm operating, from my intellect, or I'm operating from being or whatever. But I really like the idea that it's like, what playground do I want to play in right now? Or what playground am I playing in right now? Is like, wow, that's really useful to me, because the word play is included all the time, and that's got nothing to do with getting it right. It just, can really be an anchor for me, is trying to get it right. And playing is a different thing. That's just kind of open-ended. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was great.
Oh, my pleasure. I want to comment, if that's okay. How you said that people liken it to a game, and that means there's a winner or a loser. And I can remember when I was taking those thinking about my thinking seminars, that it was always like, you can't play at life if you're on the bleachers. And while that's an interesting metaphor, it does suggest that you're going to go out and play with an eye to winning something. And if you don't win it, you're losing. And that that often stopped me too. I also love the idea of just play, and that it's unself-conscious presence to me. The letting go of the thinking and just enjoying whatever that moment is. Even if you're upset, like you fall down and you skin your knee, you get to be upset. That is definitely your humanity. And then eventually you let that process and drain away and learn something, if you get to learn something, or see what's next. If there's an impulse you need to follow, see what that is. But yeah, it's not a game. Unless it's a cooperative game that our kids played ages ago, where everybody wins when all the horses make it into the corral.
Thank you, Jimmy and Bea. Alessandra.
Vee, I love that, honestly. I enjoyed every minute of what you shared. And I remember the call that we had together, maybe a couple of months back, such a different energy. And, I don't know if it's a question because I had it 1 minute ago and then it's gone. So I'm just going to try and see what I can retrieve. I love the idea. I mean, what Jimmy said about just playing, and you said, that you get onto the playground and you just got to enjoy. But don't you feel, I mean, I've seen you, okay, in the course of these months of this wonderful journey that we're all doing together, as Linda was saying. And I mean, we kind of each other's witnesses in a way, within the group, all of us have had a chance of exchanging, before this amazing experience. And I mean, when was it, the exact time, or maybe you can point that could be useful to people, listening to us, that you went, I am in the playground right now. And because we all are, right? It just I can relate to myself. I mean, I have been, and I was just playing and just watching around saying, how am I doing this? How are they judging me? Am I playing right? Am I doing it okay? And I was very much in my head. But then it comes a point where you just go, how peaceful, how wonderful, whatever. I don't care if I'm doing this the right way. I'm just enjoying the process. I mean, when was it for you that moment kind of, I mean, we know it's a process, but maybe you can point towards that a bit more. I don't know if you have anything. If I don't know if I'm making any sense.
You are. And I almost felt like you were just about to answer your own question, because you were very aware of when you are in the flow and when you're not. But your question was, for when did I know? And it's like, for me, it's like, I think I may have used this analogy before. I don't know why it's bubbling up again. It's like you're a knight in armor and it's time to go swimming. Now, are you going to go swimming with your full set of armor on, including, a sword or whatever, the mace or the halberds or whatever? Or are you going to start taking off so you don't sink to the bottom? And it, so for me, it actually was a step-by-step process. The process word is very accurate. There wasn't one day where I stood up and went, aha, I am enlightened, behold me. It didn't work that way. I just had, and I don't think I'll ever be able to say that truthfully. But I have moments when I can become aware of, I love Photoshop. Unfortunately, I don't subscribe to Adobe anymore. I got something else, but I love being in image editing, and I can stay in there for hours. And I'm thinking about nothing except, how does this color work here? What image can I put there? And I'm totally in flow. And when I notice that happening sometimes during the day, when I'm away from my computer, when I'm in conversation, when I'm with a client, when I'm just walking around and talking to my kids, that is the moment that I have ahas. And the sad thing is, it's not really a sad thing. The human thing is, it doesn't last all day. It just, it comes and goes. Thinking really wants to assert itself. So maybe the biggest removal of armor was when Christy said, do you trust that the universe has your back?
Hmm.
There's a story she told me about, and I think this is also a Michael Neal story. The people in this village near a river, and yeah, you've all probably heard this one, where they would go out and they would hear people screaming they were drowning in the river, and so they would jump in the river and pull people out. And as they pulled them out, they noticed someone else would be coming down the river and they'd be drowning, and so they pulled them out. And the guy that was getting everybody all enrolled in helping these people one day disappeared. And there were still, people coming down the river, and the people living there got really angry because the guy that had started this whole thing had disappeared on them. And while he was gone, there were fewer and fewer people coming down the river, and eventually nobody was in the river and drowning. And the guy who started it all came back, and they were just crazy upset. Like, where have you been? We have been rescuing all these people. What have you been doing? He goes, well, I went upstream and taught people how to swim. So, sometimes it I love that story. There's so many takeaways from that, but sometimes it's just not rescuing yourself from drowning in the moment, but knowing, and in this process, being there to teach yourself how to swim.
Mm,
Does that communicate?
absolutely. That was just perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Ali. B. Anybody else that would like to share or ask a question? Or are we up for a brief, a few minutes of break? Okay. I wasn't finding the words.
I just want to add in, Vee, I absolutely loved everything you shared. I'm so grateful that you joined this program. And I love the cartoon and what a great visual metaphor it is. And I want a copy of it.
No, it's mine. Yes.
Maybe you can download the image and share it on the chat so
Yeah.
everybody can have it. If you can, or
Yes,
send
that
me
would
the
be
link
great.
and I'll do that. Okay, because it was a wonderful image.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was wonderful. The way you walk us through your story and what you're seeing and the feeling in it. It was great.
Thank you.
So, oh, Linda. Linda raised her hand.
Yeah, I there were a bunch of things in there that I loved, and I got the screenshot of the cartoon right away. But um something, now I don't know if I'm gonna count. Oh yeah, I wrote down 3 words here. There was like 3 sentences, and the last one I think was unpredict my journey or something like that. Can you say that again?
I can. To travel purposefully towards unknown destinations, to be open to limitless possibilities, and to unpredict your journey.